If you can cop a fine of $1 billion when you steal 20, that's called a cost of doing business. That's how the mob operates.
Hi, welcome to another Flip Side. Today I'm going to talk about a movie that I saw over the weekend, and that was Wolf of Wall Street. And after about half an hour, I started to get a sick feeling in my stomach, and I actually couldn't watch the rest of it. And it just felt like Scorsese was propagating a fake reality that the elite criminal bankers want us to live in, and just touching on the tip of the iceberg of this huge fraud and deceit that the central bank and that Wall Street and all the elite want us to believe in. So I asked my friend Greg Buck what he thought of the film and how it related to society as we know it.
The interesting thing is that when I read the book and then when I went and saw the movie, I was kind of thinking there might have been some sort of redemption in there, some sort of attempt to sort of describe how it is that these people just can behave like this and get away with it. And there was none of that. I mean, the movie just basically is just like financial pornography, in the sense that it was just a titillating ride through this guy's life and this amazing money and the drugs and the sex and the orgies and the alcohol and just nothing at all about how the hell does our system allow this to happen and actually applaud this.
Fairy dust.
But it was very disappointing from the point of view that it didn't actually tell us anything about the stuff that we really should be getting told about by Hollywood, which is more the sort of stuff you would have seen in movies like, The Inside Job, or reading books like The Great Deformation or The Big Short, or things which actually describe the machinations in layman's terms of what's going on Wall Street and how these guys make all this money and how these guys are actually fed by the system and the politicians and by the Federal Reserve, and about how the whole system is designed so that they can't do anything but make this enormous amount of money at everyone else's expense. But no one questions whether actually that is acceptable or not. It's just how it is. Well, it's not just how it is. It's been engineered that way. It works that way. It works that way on purpose. I mean, we can go into a lot of discussion about why it works that way and how it works that way, but it's no accident. And the thing that I find really interesting about it is, in typical American fashion, the guy gets caught, the guy goes to jail, the guy gets a big fine, all these kind of things. This is what the newspaper says. Whereas in reality what's happened is the guy got a slap on the wrist. That happens with all of them. So the newspaper blazes this headline about how these scumbags were fined $1 billion. But not one of these guys in Wall Street, not one of them since the GFC, not one has gone to jail. Not a single one.
So what do you say about the stockbrokers in Australia dealing in blue chip stocks and making the average Joe some money?
The point of it is that I actually believe that the anger and the finger is pointed in the wrong direction. The stockbrokers are doing what stockbrokers do. They broker stocks. If you've got a bunch of clients out there and you have to actually sell them some products and make them some money, you've got to sell them products and make them some money and so on within the framework of whatever you are handed in terms of the economy, in terms of the financial system. Now, we currently have a system where money is basically free to the big guys. Interest rates are on the bottom. What does interest rates on the bottom mean? It means that savers can't get a decent return on their money. It means that pensioners can't get a decent return. It means no one can actually live on their savings. It means no one's actually supposed to be saving. That's what zero interest rates means. Don't save, it's not worth it. So, in an environment like that, what are the brokers to do to try and get business? What they got to do is they got to try and say to people, oh, you've got to go into growth stocks and you've got to go into sort of high yield things and you've got to try and actually make a living. If you're not making 3 or 4% on your money, you're going backwards because the inflation rate's higher than that and so on. So in an environment like that, the brokers are peddling the poor buggers all of this stuff on Wall Street and all these funny securities and all these blue chip stocks and all this kind of stuff, because really there isn't a choice. But the blame lies with the authorities, the central banks, the governments and so on, for allowing a system where everything is fixed, where interest rates are forced to the bottom, where money is flooded into the system in the interests of keeping the banks solvent, in the interests of looking after the big guys, at the expense of the little guys. The brokers are just kind of like the intermediaries. Something which I find all the time really interesting, this whole argument about inflation and deflation. We hear that deflation's this terrible bloody bogeyman out there. Deflation's a shocking thing. Now, if you're struggling and you're not earning as much money as you used to earn, why is deflation a problem for you? I would have thought that if it's costing you less to buy your bread, your petrol, send your kids to school, I don't think people will be out in the streets with pitchforks complaining about that. I don't see that that's a big problem. So who's it a bloody problem for? Deflation is a problem because all of the risky activities that the financial system has become involved in is in the form of lending money, is in the form of bonds, is in the form of stocks, is in the form of financial instruments. And these things need to be protected from deflation, because if their prices go down, the peddlers of that nonsense get burnt. It's as simple as that. So in the interest of keeping all these things inflated, prices of everything have to be kept up. And how come deflation in the labour market isn't the bogeyman that deflation in the bond market is? Why is deflation in labour and people's wages considered a good thing? Globalisation, price of things coming down, electronics is costing less. I mean, it's good, you can get a washing machine for less, that's good. We get told that all the time by the politicians. That's because those things are all being produced for a much cheaper price, because the poor buggers who are producing it are getting paid less and less and less and less to produce it. That's considered competition in this world. But when you now say, okay, well, what about house prices? What about bond prices? What about asset prices in general? All of a sudden they switch now. Now we've got deflation apartheid. So it's much more complicated than just sort of saying, oh, you're going to blame the brokers, or you're going to blame a bank or whatever. The whole system has become one where really it's become so obvious that the whole thing is just a scam and a joke.
Yeah.